Hello and welcome back to the Game Room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love? Talking about games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 5,274 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. Another week has gone by. We have picked up more Switch games, but this week we are taking a look again at the mighty PS4. This will be the third time we've looked at it, and ironically, the video I did last time on the PS4 did really poorly the first week, but did really well since then, so let's see if that happens again. So if that sounds interesting to you, we're going to talk about 10 PS4 games that you should pick up. Alright, let's check it out. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, so let's start off with a game here that I know is not for everybody. Basically, all of the Quantic Dreams games are this way, though I think of all of them, this one might be the most interesting for a general audience. At least, I don't know, my wife played it with me and she loved it, and that game is Detroit Become Human. Now, this game is known for more than just the memes of the robot guy that everyone saw going around that year. It also has a couple other actors in it you might recognize. My wife certainly did. One of the main characters is a recurring character on the show Grey's Anatomy, which she did make me watch all 18 seasons of during the pandemic. Really put that free time to use. But I digress. This is a game where it is more or less a choose-your-own adventure with consequences. So you play as 3 different android creatures in a world where androids are basically used as second-class citizens. They are used as sort of maids or lackeys, that kind of thing. And then if they go off the deep end, they get decommissioned in a horrible way, do no harm, that kind of thing. It's similar to, I want to say, like the iRobot sort of circumstance. And in this, you get a robot faction that is starting to break away, saying that androids have consciousness, need rights. And then there's a detective android who is sort of playing on the side of the humans. And he has interactions with a detective that is the guy who played one of the characters from Lost, though he was only in a couple episodes, and he's in a bunch of stuff. He's a good actor. And then the third person is a female android that is caring for a young little girl. Depending on your actions, you can influence how these robots interact with the world. Either there's a revolution at the end, or they get stamped out. You can have your characters to get killed before you make it to the end, much like in Heavy Rain, and is a lot more of a game where anything truly does feel like it can happen, unlike, say, Heavy Rain or some of the Walking Dead, that type of games. Like, there are a lot of different pathways. There's complete vignettes you can miss, and sometimes the obvious answer is not the right one. Sometimes it is. There's a lot of cool things. One part where you're parachuting off a building, and it's probably their best work. I don't think they've done anything since this game. I think maybe they remastered Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls, something like that. But Detroit Become Human probably is the best game they have made, even if I do enjoy the subject matter of Heavy Rain more. This is a game that's probably a lot more approachable for more people, as well as just had some really fun moments in it. Is it going to skyrocket? No. Like I said, a lot of these games, especially on the PS4, I don't see any of them getting super expensive. Maybe a few of the obscure ones, though I don't have a lot of those. Ultimately, some of these videos are just intended to give you guys an idea about what some of the games you should pick up are, even regardless of the price. Speaking of a game you should definitely grab, this was a digital release back in, I want to say, 2011 that really convinced myself that a indie game could be worth a damn. And it came out with the Xbox 360's Summer Arcade Fest. I saw it in Game Informer. I saw it get reviewed in Game Informer, and I want to say it got a 10. It really, before it came out, had a lot of positive press. And when I played it, it did not disappoint. And that game is Bastion. So this was one of the later releases on the system. This was an Xbox 360 download title, and I don't think it released on the PS4 until, 2017, 2018. And I've never opened it. I just wanted it. It's made by Supergiant Games. They have made 4 games at this point. They're working on the 5th one. So they made Bastion. They made Transistor. They made a really good game named Pyre that no one talks about. And then they made Hades. And Hades lit the world on fire. And it's probably by far their best game. Though after Hades, I would still say Bastion might still be better in some regards. It harkens back to the 16-bit era of action-adventure games, sort of like Terranigma, that kind of vibe. But what makes it so unique is that you play as a nameless boy who wakes up during a calamity, and then there's a narrator that will narrate your behavior in real time based on what weapon you have, what you are doing, and how you are performing. As well as you will then unlock the ability to make the world harder or easier, as well as have different endings, and then New Game Plus ad nauseum as much as you want. There's several different weapons you can unlock that have different play styles, a very secretive monolith, and it's just a lot of fun, doesn't overstay its welcome, has a wonderful soundtrack. All of the Supergiant games have great soundtracks, and they usually have vocals by a certain female singer who is in this. The one that was really, really prominent in this game is I'll Build That Wall, or You Dig a Hole, I'll Build a Wall. And then they're also the same people who play Oedipus or Euripides, or someone in Hades, but it's always and also in Transistor, she was the main character. God, it's like Sarah something. Anyways, very, very good game, and one I cannot recommend enough. I literally had this as my number 1 game I wish got a physical release, and when it finally did, I could not buy it soon enough. There was not a lot of copies made. Yes, I think it was limited run games, but just pick the damn thing up. It is well worth it. It's one of my favorite games from the 360 era, and still to this day, one of my favorite indie games, and I love the studio, and I'm looking forward to playing Hades 2 one of these days. All right, we got some low-hanging fruit on this episode here. So one of the games that surprisingly, I don't know how, is still stuck to the PS4, much to the chagrin of PC players everywhere, is a little game I'm sure you've heard of. You probably already have it, but it is Bloodborne. Now, this is not an expensive game, but it might be someday. Who knows? I think it's going to get for like $5-10. It is the From Software Dark Souls formula, but it is very moody. It's dark gothic. It's got great subject matter. It's got a more intense combat system that highlights a risk reward where you get damaged. If you deal more damage, you can get some of that damage back. Circa Streets of Rage 4, that kind of mechanic. I played this a little bit, and with me in the FromSoft games, it took until Sekiro for me to finally beat one and really appreciate it. Then I beat Elden Ring. I went back and I beat Demon's Souls. But I have still not gone back and played Bloodborne since, I want to say 2015, 2014, right around when I started my channel, because I got tired of modern games and I wanted to go back and take a look at Japanese translated games and things like that. And Bloodborne, Arkham Knight, these games were the ones that made me throw in the towel. So I don't know if I was just fatigued or what. I'm not a huge dark gothic inspired person. That imagery doesn't really do much for me, but maybe I need to give it another look, because people still to this day talk about how wonderful it is, how great it is, and it is fun. It definitely is fun. I've beaten a few bosses in it. It just, with the FromSoft games, if you ever stop, it just, where was I, what was I doing? Like, they're not very pick up and play in a sense where you can forget where you are in the context of the world, which is funny because there's no story in it, so it's not even like that, which might be part of the problem, is that if you just put it down and you go back into it, if you don't remember where all the levels were and then you have to go through it with this plodding, deliberate pace, I just lose patience after a while. And that didn't happen with Sekiro, it didn't happen with Elden Ring, so I don't know, maybe I just need to go back. But yes, Bloodborne, that is a PS4 game. Obviously, you need to pick up. You need it in your collection. If you have a PS4, it is shockingly still stuck on the PS4. But who knows? They'll probably release it for something silly like the Switch 2 one of these days. All right, now this was a game that was a big surprise when it was announced and came out. I want to say it came out fairly close to when it was announced. And then it just disappeared again. And it was a mascot character from the PS1 era, back when everyone wanted a mascot. And I think this character even made it into some PlayStation All-Stars type events. But the game is Medieval. This is just a remake of the first game. My buddy Archer actually bought this back when I was at Acura, and he sold it to me or gave it to me. I can't quite remember. It's not a super pricey game, but it really is just a remake of the PS1 era game. And it does a good job of that. Honestly, I would have rather have seen it be sort of like a Legacy of Kain where they remade 1 and 2. But I guess they were hedging their bets. This one, I don't know if it sold well. Not many people played it. People kind of thought, what was the point? And they never made another one out of it. And the character and series has just been dormant ever since. It's always weird when that happens, when you see a character come back from forever ago, have a game, nothing really happens, and then it goes away, and it's a shame. I still go out and buy those things. I still try and support it because I like seeing that come back. I'd love to see them remake the second one as well, but what are you going to do? That's still another one, especially if you don't want to go back to the PS1. It does have some PS1 jank. I know some of the people didn't like the old style controls, though in my opinion, get over it, learn the control styles, and then we can start getting more and more unique games. Part of the problem we're dealing with today is that every game plays the same, and a lot of that is by design because people do not want to learn anything new, and if anything does come out that's different, they revolt. Sort of the thing that people complain with Nintendo when you have the jump button not be the same button across games, which for me is never a problem. If I hit jump and it's the wrong button, I course correct within 2 or 3 seconds. It doesn't compute with me, the people that can't ever comprehend that kind of thing. But maybe I would think that way now in my older age. I will say going to inverted controls to not inverted controls is a lot harder now than it was back in the N64 era. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. All right. This is another game that was very interesting. I remember reading about it. It was a digital-only game, and then it got a physical release, and I wanted to pick it up, and I did, and I really enjoyed it to an extent. I want to say I played it shortly after I played Survival Kids on the Game Boy, and this is a survival game, which is not a genre I'm really all that crazy about, though I did enjoy my time with this game. And that is The Flame in the Flood. And the way this game works is that you are a girl trying to traverse this river all the way to the end of the line. And as you're going through the river, you need to keep yourself dry, healthy, fed, energy, keep your raft afloat, all these different metrics and plates you got to keep spinning. And as you're going throughout the world, you will consume more and more of these resources and likely fail on your way to the end of the river. And I did get to the end of the river, and it was an enjoyable enough game. I think you have a little creature, either a dog or a fox, that comes along with you that nothing happens to and can kind of defend you. It's been a while since I played this. There's a day and night cycle. I do remember that. But other than that, it's one of those, I'd say it's like a standard 7 or 8 experience, so nothing crazy. You know, and my 7 or 8s for others might be around a 5 or a 6, because I tend to be a little bit more generous with things. But worth having, definitely an interesting game, unique, not a lot of other things that play like it, and one that I would still recommend grabbing. I don't know what it goes for now. I think it's still pretty cheap. All these games, I think, are still pretty cheap. I think the most expensive one I'm going to talk about might be this one right here, which is actually a game I haven't played yet, and that is Disaster Report 4. Now, I had never heard of this damn series until it randomly showed up in either a From the Void video or something like that. And when I heard about the concept where it is a disaster going on in the world and you are living through it, much like living through the movie San Andreas or Volcano or Dante's Peak, and I just thought, yes, please, let me play that. I am sure I'm going to love that. In fact, there's 4 of them. I'm going to have to go find the other ones. So I got the one on the PS2. I got the second one on the PS2, which here in the West was renamed to Raw Danger. And then the third one, I don't think we got in the West, or if it did, it was on something like the Vita or something like that. But I have the majority of the series now. Let me know if you guys have ever played it. I've heard really good things about it. I believe there is a version of it on the Switch as well that's probably more expensive. And when I say expensive, like, you know, I think this is like a $30 to $40 game. Nothing crazy. But then again, it could be. It's been a while since I looked at it. But yes, you are just going through a disaster in real time. For some reason, it gives me like a Time Crisis vibe from some of the images and some of the things I feel like maybe the chunky graphics. I don't know. I could be way off on that. All right, getting down to the last few here. So this is a game that it's probably my favorite game on the PS4. Bar none. It was such a return to form from a classic series, and especially at the time it came out in 2018, where everything that was getting revived or that was coming back after years was getting thrashed. You know, things like The Last Jedi, Terminator, Dark Fate, the Aliens franchise, all these things. This game came out and not only paid homage to the original game, but pushed forward in a very interesting new direction, and that is the God of War 2018. Couldn't keep this momentum going. Ragnarok had to blow it all to smithereens, but this game takes Kratos, it cools him off a little bit, gives him a more deliberate pace, gives him a son, gives him a story that you want to know what happened between that and the end of God of War 3, but it also it's still the same continuation. You are still the god of Sparta. The various different things hold over from God of War 3 and that old series do show up, but now you're in a Norse mythology world. And as someone who's a big mythology geek, like I love hearing about Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology. There's this whole series of books I've written by a guy named, I think, James L. Lovegood, called like Age of Odin, Age of Ra, Age of Zeus, that are always these interesting sort of sci-fi tech type movies where the gods are real entities and they get into fights with humans and all that. But anyways, more or less, I'm a big fan of mythologies. And so taking a game that was based in Greek mythology and then being like, okay, we're going to move over into Norse mythology. I haven't had a really cool, like, jump the shark awesome factor like that since I'd say season 4 of Supernatural, where you've known demons were real for the whole series. And then suddenly you meet the angels. And it was just, oh my God. Now people are talking about God of War going to Egyptian mythology. In my personal opinion, I think Ragnarok sort of ruined it, where they tried to cram in way too much. They focused on uninteresting characters and just ridiculous choices that accelerated what could have been another 2 games into 1 game and then was kind of unsatisfying. But anyways, God of War, the 2018 version, has such good combat. I played it on Give Me God of War mode, which really put me to the test, and I loved every second of it. Great storyline, really interesting to see how it develops. The side content with Niflheim was a lot of fun, where they had sort of a roguelike area you could go through that had a Valkyrie at the end of it, and the Valkyrie fights in general, the Queen Valkyrie, was so intense, even harder than anything I did in Ragnarok. I love this game. I can't recommend it more. You guys definitely need to pick up this game. Is it going to go up in value? Probably not. No, this is going to be a dirt cheap game. But still, dirt cheap games you want to have in your collection too, because if it's $5 versus $10, hey, that you should have got it at $5. There you go. See? All right, another game here. This is one that is made by the same developers as Shadow of the Colossus and what's the other one? Eco? I think it's Eco it's called. This was the 3rd game. No one really talks about it anymore, and that game is The Last Guardian. Now, yet again, another game I haven't played, part of because there's a very lovable creature, and with the developers of this game, I don't trust that that lovable creature is not going to end up 6 feet under towards the end of the game, or transcended, or something like that. But this game, I want to say, was in development for a decade. It came out, it got decent reviews, but then it disappeared again. And since then, I think they did a remake of Shadow of the Colossus. I know there's been rumblings about it, a remake of Eco. But Last Guardian is the 3rd game in the trilogy, probably the least talked about. And it is a game where, similar to something like Majin and the Forsaken Kingdom, you control you, but then you have a secondary god character that tails you around that's like a pet and will help you traverse the levels, do this and that, get into different places. looks really interesting. I just, once again, I'm worried about what happens to the guy, and it's one of those games where you have to be in a right mind space. There's games where you need to be in a certain mind space to play, especially when you get out of the retro era, and that is definitely one of them. And as someone who likes to play games while listening to something else, it's part of the reason why I put over 20 hours into Gravekeeper on the Switch in the last 2 weeks, because it's just so dang fun to have. I know what I need to do. I need to grind this, need to grind that, need to do this, need to do that, unlock this. Let me listen to some, creepy pastas or whatever while I'm doing this. But yeah, that's a game I'm definitely going to have to focus on. This is another game I haven't played yet that actually has become a little bit harder to find. It was one of the games that when GameStop said they were going to start publishing games, I believe this was one of them, and it was only available at GameStops. And this was a game that Jen bought me as a complete joke. After our honeymoon, we had this little jingle we came up about how many whales travel around here. And so she bought me this game and wrote that in the cover, like how many whales travel around here. And that game is Song of the Deep. And I remember when she got me this, I was like, oh hey, that's the game that I've heard about. It's an underwater game, which I'm always, for some reason, I love collecting games underwater. Maybe it's just my affinity for water. But this was one that I was genuinely glad she did pick up. She just picked up some random games at GameStop. This had to have been the Christmas of 2019 or my birthday of 2019. And yes, I haven't put it in yet. I have no idea what the game's about. I know it was released by GameStop, and I think after that they stopped doing these. So they have I think this was the only game or maybe one of two games they did in this particular program. But it's definitely one I would like to check out. Let me know, should I? Have you guys played it? Am I on the right path? And yeah, just kind of funny that generally when she went out and bought me games, they were trash. But this is one that the South Park Fractured Butthole was another one where she actually struck gold. So there you go. And the last game we're going to talk about here was actually one of the games that I was the most excited about playing on the Xbox One. I first heard about this game in 2013. This was right before the rogue genre exploded, so there weren't that many out there. I want to say Rogue Legacy was one of the only games like that. Games like Spelunky, there weren't huge kind of traversing story type games yet, nothing like a Dead Cells or things kind of like that. And so when I read about this one, it seemed like a very simple graphical style. It took place from a very far zoomed out angle. There was a game I played, another download game called Titan Souls, that it kind of rung a bell with. And this game, ironically, I did play on the Xbox One. I played it on Game Pass when I had Game Pass for like 2 months because it was $1. Then I canceled it. And then it got a physical release on the PS4 that I had no idea came out. Luckily, I was able to snag one when it was still around $20 on Amazon. And that game is Below. And Below was a game that just disappeared. So it was supposed to come out like 2013, 2014. It completely disappeared. And then it just, I want to say, shadow dropped at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. I covered it for the channel back then on Xbox. Really, really enjoyed it. It's not perfect. It definitely is a game that if it came out in 2013, I think we would be praising the hell out of it, versus when it came out in 2018, 2019, we already had all these other glut of games that either came out on Steam or were indie releases and it kind of just fell away. But it's a very unique, interesting concept. You're stranded on an island. It does have some callbacks to Zelda. It is sort of like a survival game, resource game. But every time you die, you go back to the beginning. And you're just trying to go down all the way to the bottom. And then once you get to the bottom, then you find out there's some technology. There's a light area. You can swim off the island, get back. There's a whole area where there's laser beams and all these other... It's pretty nuts. It's one of those games where when I was playing it, because I was playing it to review for the channel, I played through it a little faster and a little bit more irritated that I had to play through it as fast as I did when I did, versus then how I'm kind of doing games now, where like a game like Gravekeeper, I really enjoyed it. I can let it breathe. I can enjoy playing it. And I find that's better for myself when judging these games accurately, because to this day, every time I think about Below, I have fond memories. Now, it might be because it was a game that I hotly anticipated. It disappeared for 2 to 4 years and then came out And when it was out, it came out, and then I got to play it immediately. So unlike, say, a game like Mugenics, where Mugenics I hotly anticipated, it disappeared for about 5 to 7 years. And then it came back, but I don't think it's out yet. And come on, Edward McMillan, I want to play this damn game. It's not on Steam. Get it on a console, please. But yes, Below is fun. It is a very simple, I think a 2-button game. You can get, I think, 1 arrow and then bring it back to you. And there's a sword, and you're very vulnerable. There's this creeping dark that tries to get you when you're below, so you have to light things on fire. There's different traps you have to avoid. And when you die, your body stays there, and then you'll see the other bodies as you're going throughout. And I think it has a Dark Souls-like element where when you die, you lose your inventory and items. And if you make it back to your body, you can get those things back. And so that's what I mean. If this is a game that came out 2013, unique, but 2019, everything was doing that then. But still, highly recommend it. I think you can still find new copies of it, and it's just a very interesting game that I was shocked had a physical release, even more shocked that it was physical on PS4. Because once again, this was an Xbox One exclusive. Yet again proving how stupid Microsoft is. But anyways, that's what you get for this week, guys. As a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Thank you all for being here. I love doing these videos. I love seeing the comments. I apologize again that I can't respond to all the different comments that you guys put out, but I do read them. I've had a couple of great ideas recently. Someone asked me what my favorite, do a video on my favorite platformer. I'd like to know if you're seeing this, would you mean 2D platformer or 3D platformer? I'm probably going to do a video for both. But anyways, it's just, I love the interaction. I love the continuation. We are getting close to 5,300 subs. I still can't believe I'm over 5,000. Thank you all so much. Thank you again. We'll do it again next week. And it's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.